We're here, folks. T-minus 1 month until we're tearing this game open. Transformations, co-op, retro stages, Donkey Kong racing. There's a lot to discuss. I think the game looks incredible, but I couldn't help but notice something missing in the mix of everything. Where's our boy? Many of you folks in the comments, like official Tom Cruise 123, must be taking a victory lap right about now, but I'm here to tell you that the race isn't over yet. Call me Kopey Kong, Cope K. Rule, or Cope Lumsy, but I'm not any less convinced that Kremlings are in fact in this game. Let me tell you why. Let's just start with the opening of the direct. We hear a song with the first lyric being, "When the world felt so cruel." I find it interesting that they would open with that lyric. You might say that this could be a translation thing, so I checked the Japanese presentation and found the same English song. When the world felt so cruel. For those of you who think I'm reading too much into this, may I present Mario Odyssey. It's a puzzle. That game debuted with Jump Up Superstar being put out there in trailers with lyrics that literally spoiled the ending of the game. Now, I don't think this was meant to be some kind of tease, but the song was written with the game in mind, with lots of specific references to gameplay theme and setting. The Donkey Kong song is no exception, referencing tunnels and boulders among its singing of things being cruel. They showed the cutscene that I spent an unnecessary amount of time breaking down in the Boulder Theory video. The two laugh tracks I talked about there are still here intact, leaving me to continue wondering who else is laughing in that moment. After this Crocless Direct, a lot of people are settling into the thought that Voidco may in fact be the start and finish of the villains in this game. If that's where you're at, I totally understand, and I think that's what the game wants you to think at the moment. Here's the thing though, their behavior is a little suspect. Let's start with Grumpy Kong. I love that name, by the way. He seems to create the enemies in Donkey Kong's path. I suppose that makes sense. Small question though. Why is he so into crocodiles? Is he subscribed to the Kong Compendium? Is he a Croc Watch enjoyer? It could be coincidental, but seeing Voidco creating crocoids with Kremling-looking skeletons makes the situation even more fishy than I originally thought. We still don't know much about Poppy Kong, but Void Kong continues to be the other candidate for Big Bad in this game. The major plot is a race to the planet's core. It's said that there's a wish that can be granted there, so DK has to get there before the weird-looking monkey does. There's a lot to be said about the leader of Voidco. First off, Void means completely empty or invalid. Now this might not seem like a big thing, but enshrined in natural law there's a naming convention to Donkey Kong characters. We got Donkey, Lanky, Manky, Funky, Chunky, Wrinkly, Cranky, Dixie. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Candy, Kitty, Diddy, Tiny, Swanky. Every Kong has this sort of naming convention in the main games. Don't bring up Ringo or Uncle Kong, they don't count. There was one exception to this rule, however, and that is the bosses from Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. So maybe they go with a different naming convention with enemies, except no they don't, because they go with Grumpy and Poppy for the other Voidco primates in this game. But this guy, he's just named Void. It's suspicious. That's all I'm saying. His name very well might be a clue to his ultimate role. He wants to go to the planet's core, which would line up with the series' previous conception of the Krem Core. The whole game builds to this moment of a clash in the center of the Earth, and while the Voidco Kongs are cool, I think we just see too much of them throughout the game for them to be the final boss. They just give brutal vibes. This guy especially. Skips and some of the DK crew speculated on his look. Something's a little off here. Look at him. Look at these teeth. He's got this faux fur coat and nails that look like some kind of acrylic or builder gel. I had to ask my wife about this. Oh, and speaking of his coat, look at this. It's red on the inside. Look at this stitching pattern. Like, are the graphics wigging out or is this meant to cover something up?
I found you, faker.
One of the big hooks of this game is Donkey Kong transforming, something that Sun Wukong did a lot of in the famous writings. You know who else transforms? The six-eared macaque. It's entirely possible that this monkey is actually K. Rool in disguise. We also have to look back on the Journey to the West theory, which is looking stronger with each bit of footage that we see. That would explain why he has some eerie similarities to the Kremling King, such as a gold chest, sharp teeth, and strained eyes like he's been playing Mario Kart World until 3 in the morning. I probably don't need to tell you that a lot of Nintendo antagonists smash the mechanic and form of the heroes in the final battle. This happens often in Mario games, with Bowser turning into a cat for 3D World and using his hat as a weapon in Mario Odyssey. I imagine we might see Voidco do the same. Sure, they could pull this off without K. Rool, but it would be strange to have all these crocodile enemies in the game with no K. Rool. When Donkey Kong Country Returns pivoted away from the classic enemies, they didn't include a different type of crocodile because that would be kind of strange, wouldn't it? Instead, they said ahead of time in interviews that there would be no King K. Rool or crocodiles in general, as to set the right expectations. Now, I'm not saying that K. Rool is 100% in, but I'm still convinced that the Kremlings will be back. let me introduce you to a channel that you should be subscribed to. Kiwi Talks is a collection of over 100 game developer interviews that give us insight into franchises like The Elder Scrolls, Metroid Prime, and most important for our discussion, Donkey Kong. I've learned a ton of interesting tidbits about the franchise from these interviews, and I'm going to link a playlist for it at the end of the video for you to check out. Reese does a great job digging into the nitty-gritty of how your favorite games are made, paying attention to the sacrifice and ingenuity that goes into them. I can't recommend it enough. I bring Reese and his channel up because Skips shared this tweet with me, and I immediately pointed to my computer screen, recognizing him from his excellent interviews. His tweet was a response to the recent video from Kit and Krista. If you're not familiar with them, they used to do PR at Nintendo, and now they have their own thing. A few days ago, they were speculating on who was making Donkey Kong and what that meant for 3D Mario going forward. Here's what Reese had to say in response, quote, "DK Bananza is being developed by a new team that was spun off from the Odyssey team. There are a lot of younger devs in the Odyssey team that grew up playing the DKC games and wanted to make one. I've heard the Kremlings are making a return. 3D Mario is still on the way." End quote. For what it's worth, in my very unprofessional opinion, I think we're getting a 3D Mario next year along with the anniversary in the movie, but let's tackle the other part of that statement where Reese expects the Kremlings to return. He went on to say, quote, "There's some narrative online that Nintendo doesn't like the Kremlings because they are associated with Rare and Retro weren't allowed to use them in their games, which is BS. Hence why I mentioned the Kremlings." I talked to Reese to clarify the claim, and while he can't guarantee that the Krems are back, he trusts the source he heard this information from. Now you might be thinking, why should we trust Kiwi Talks? Well, apart from the obvious number of connections that he has up and down the industry, simply put, he's not a clout goblin. He has a passion for getting the overly secretive stories of game development out into the open. He's not a leaker, but he is sitting on a lot of information that will occasionally come out to rein in expectations or clarify a misunderstanding. He shared about Retro's canceled project 5 months ago, and a few months after his post, we all got to see the game concept leak, with some people outright playing a build on YouTube. Hey, come to think of it, kinda strange that Retro was making a game where a girl would ride on top of different beasts and there was a musical element to the whole thing. Really makes you wonder. Anyway, Reese has also reported on the reason we didn't get Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remasters, and while we don't have outright verification that it happened the way he said it did, the math seems to check out. Now, I will say that game development is complicated, so I've seen situations where two honest people receive conflicting reports. Take all this sort of info with its portion of salt, but I'm vibing with this. Even before seeing these tweets, I was still pretty convinced that K. Rool was in the game. There's this sense of excitement with the center of the planet, and they gotta have something cool down there. If it's Void Kong but he transforms or has a giant robot, I mean, that's neat, but imagine the response if our boy is just chilling down there. The only question that remains in my mind is, are they going to show K. Rool and the Kremlings off ahead of the release? Look at Mario Kart World. They had this huge place to explore with a bunch of new characters, and they spoiled every one of them before release. From a marketing standpoint, you don't want to leave anything on the table, especially when you're trying to hype up the launch window. At the same time, this game is way more dense than we were initially led to believe. It's dense, it goes deep, you might say. With all the features shown off in the recent Direct, I think this game can stand on its own, leaving the Krocs to be a surprise for the players. There is this whole modern thing of having the moment spoiled for you shortly after release, but that didn't stop Nintendo previously. Again, Mario Odyssey had quite the surprising and marketable moment at the end of the game that wasn't used for any marketing. Instead, it was preserved as a secret for players to experience themselves, unless Prosopia Gaming was in their algorithm. So here's where I'm sitting on this whole Kroc thing. I think K. Rool and the Kremlings are in this game, but I don't know where they will show up or if we'll know ahead of the game's release. Maybe Boulder Theory is right, and we'll see him standing behind the monkeys when that second laugh track plays. I could see Voidco staying behind to slow DK down while K. Rool works his way to the center. Maybe K. Rool is resurrected at the core of the planet. Maybe he's right under our noses, disguised as a macaque. Or maybe I'm totally wrong and you can make fun of me after the game comes out. That's okay too. We'll just have to wait and see. Regardless of how the Kroc stuff turns out, we are going to be feasting on so many rare and arcade-era treats. The classic stages look awesome, and we got some good looks at Diddy, Dixie, and Rambi. With Pauline having such a major focus, I feel like this game will bring the arcade and rare DK fans together. As someone who has more recently dug into the arcade side of the franchise, I'm glad it's being reintroduced to a younger generation. Maybe they could even bring back Donkey Kong Jr. The craziest part of this game is that even after all this speculation, all this digging into the background of the series, I still have so many unanswered questions. I feel like I'm simultaneously way too informed and completely in the dark. There's so much density to this game and I can't wait to explore the mechanics. More than the game release itself, it's so refreshing to see Donkey Kong get the attention and marketing push it deserves. DK is one of Nintendo's most iconic and cherished characters, and it's vindicating to see him back in center stage.